Well, welcome back this Thanksgiving weekend. Chip Nellinger and Mike North joining us. All right, Mike, we talked a little bit about export demand, but when you look at exports, especially on the meat side, it's extremely impressive this year. Despite that strong U.S. dollar, we saw some record pace. We've seen Mexico come in and make some huge buys of U.S. corn. So on the export front, do you think we will finish out the year strong, but also that will continue into Q1?
Well, that's the hope, and it's hard to know exactly. Obviously, corn is not just a simple transaction. There's a logistical component that we've struggled with river water levels, and with some moisture in the north, we're hoping that we can float a few more boats down. The Ohio River has been maintaining really strong capacities, as has the Illinois. It's that northern Mississippi zone that really needs to be able to pick up the pace, but we need some water to do that. To Chip's point earlier, I think as we watch this last couple of months of the year, or month and a half as it is, we're going to have to really see an uptick there. Otherwise, we're going to have to drastically cut exports as we go further in. We had the third lowest week for this particular week of the year in the last 10 years on corn exports. And when you start looking at performance like that, it really creates problems for us trying to get that done. So I think we're going to have some complications on the corn side. Soybeans seem to be flowing a little bit better, and we'll be watching it as we go into Q1, because as Chip pointed out, if we do have a big South American crop, our export activity is going to taper off pretty quick, and the reverse could be true if we don't.
Chip, last year, it was kind of like fund managers. They made the money that they wanted in the year. They kind of took a backseat, got out of the markets a little bit. Volume of trade was pretty low. Could we see a repeat of that to finish out the year, or do you think we'll see something else happen in 2022 here?
Well, I think that remains to be seen. I think the question in my mind is the outside markets. We've seen the dollar come off the highs. We've got a couple Federal Reserve decisions on what they're going to do with interest rates coming up here. And so, I think it's kind of a wild card out there. I really expect to end the year and to start the new year, there's going to be a lot of fireworks out there. And it's a real wild card because these funds have proven they will go where the trends are. They'll take their money out of one market, move it over to the next without much of a warning. And so I think that's really something that could drive a lot of volatility into the end of the year and the first part of 2023.
Mike, do you agree with that? Is that something that you think could catch us off guard?
Absolutely, Tyne. And we saw an example of this in June when the Fed first announced its more aggressive posture against inflation. When they made that 3/4 point announcement, we gutted the grain markets. And if macro markets suggest that they need to leave, they will leave in haste and they will create waves. And so, that is going to be one of the big watch points as we go into winter. And I would go back to Chip's comments on South America. How they perform against our smaller, tighter U.S. balance sheet will be indicative there too of what we're going to see in terms of price activity.
Chip, cash cattle, we've seen some really strong prices here in November. As you look at kind of the herd size and the question mark of just how much contraction that we did see, is that something that you think the markets will continue to latch onto as we close out 2022?
I do. I think the cattle market's really on good footing in here. The numbers are coming down. We've seen 2+ years of liquidation of breeding stock and heifers. And so the problem going forward is we might be seeing this contraction in numbers headlong right into a recession, which could cut demand down a little bit. So that's going to be something that we need to watch the first half of 2023. But I think the cattle market's on really solid footing now due to the liquidation of breeding stock, and demand should hold together, barring some sort of a massive, quick recession that's very deep and ugly, a la 2008. I think the cattle market's on really good footing for the first half of 2023.
All right, Mike, as we close out here this Thanksgiving Day weekend and headed into this holiday trade, what is the one thing that you want to leave our viewers with?
Well, I think from the grain perspective, there's going to be a lot of folks that are tempted to put grain in a bin because the last couple of years that worked just great. And as we, talk about the macro elements of recession and inflation, and we look at some of the things going on in the world, a big South American crop potentially, there's no carry in the market to suggest that storage is a good idea. So if you're going down that path, I think it's imperative, if you're going to take a chance on price, you're going to have to really manage price. And so look at strategies that keep you covered through that, because this isn't a sure thing.
Yeah, some good advice. Chip, what do you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I did agree with Mike. I'd dovetail on that and say the last couple years, the market has rewarded us to hold and wait for higher prices down the road. I'm not so sure that 2023 and beyond is going to be that same type situation. So, I think we have to kind of get our minds back into refocus here that says, hey, we're going to have some headwinds ahead of us here, especially if South America has a big crop. So we have to know where our production numbers are, know what our cost of production is, and really manage that risk, because I'm not so sure that we're still in this straight up bull market. We might be transitioning into a choppier market, tighter margins, and we got to really know what our bottom line is as a result of that.
Chip, Mike, thank you. We are very thankful for your market insight, and we appreciate you getting us prepared as we head into the holidays. All right, we need to take another break. And then John Phipps has a bit of what to be thankful for this year and just giving us some perspective this Thanksgiving Day weekend. That's next.